When you have your clients in your location, what is some of the biggest things that you see they struggle with when trying to stay on track with their fitness journeys?
The biggest thing, I think the biggest obstacle everyone struggles with is themselves. It's we convince ourselves that what we're doing is selfish. Like, oh, I'm gonna go to the gym, that's 30 minutes, but that's 30 minutes not with my kids. That's 30 minutes not with my husband or my wife, right? We convince ourselves that it's selfish. But I always tell people, taking care of yourself is the most selfless thing you can do, right?
That's so true.
Yeah, because if you think about it this way, okay, I'm a dad, right? If I don't take care of myself, what happens to my body? I get sick, I get a disease, something happens, right? How does that affect my kids? How does that affect my wife? It affects them massively in a negative way, right? But if I take care of myself, then I can consistently be healthy and I can consistently take care of them. See, when you take care of yourself, you just have more of yourself to give to everybody else.
Welcome to Beyond the Scale, the show where everyday heroes share their stories on how they turn their lives around for the healthier. I'm Coach Brittany, and today's guest is Coach Rob from Ontario Fit Body Bootcamp. He shares why weight loss is much easier when you surround yourself with love and positivity. Hope you enjoy. Welcome, Rob.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I'm excited to have you here today.
Awesome, awesome.
So can you just start by telling our listeners what you currently do?
Currently, I am a facility leader and coach at Ontario Fit Body Bootcamp.
Okay. And how long have you been doing that for?
I've been doing boot camps for the last 6 years. I work for Dustin. He's been on the show with you before. He's the big, bald, beautiful mess.
He was the wrestler.
yeah, the wrestler. Yeah, you should see some of his old videos. The long hair, oh, it's gorgeous.
We got to get some of those pictures and post them up. So what's the most rewarding thing for you working at Ontario Fit Body Bootcamp?
So one of the most rewarding parts of my job is just getting to help people every day. It's deep and it's meaningful and it just brings purpose to every day for me.
How long have you been interested in fitness? Was that always a thing, or when did you first get started?
No, I first started in fitness like most young men. I was getting married, and
okay.
I wanted to lose some weight because my wife looked so good and I did not, or I felt so at the time. So I started that just working out and cutting out soda and everything like that. But the reason I had to lose weight was because I gained nearly 80 to 90 pounds because I was involved in a dirt bike wreck when I was 19.
Wow,
so,
okay.
Yeah.
So you gained all that 80 pounds throughout the time of recovery during?
Yeah, so I was 19. I was in El Mirage, like any of my people from the desert, whoop whoop. And I was riding with a friend. We were racing down this road, and basically someone pulled out around a caravan. And we went to the right, I went over an embankment, and I rolled with the bike. I had to get airlifted to Arrowhead Trauma Center, where that was a crazy experience. I won't play, it was a crazy experience. But literally, I was kind of on the verge of dying, and I had to go through a long recovery. Like I said, I broke my back, so I had to go through a long recovery, and just gaining weight because I was depressed and couldn't do anything. I was playing video games, and all I did was pretty much eat and sleep and lay there and think about the life that I didn't have at the time. And so to me, it was the train wreck that dramatically shifted the course of my life, because it was on that recovery bed that I started to kind of make some different decisions of what I actually wanted to be doing with my life.
Wow, that has to be super traumatic to go through all that, thinking you're on the edge of death at that point.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
So before this accident, what was life like for you growing up?
So growing up, I think like anyone, I think my parents did their best with what they knew. But I always describe my family like this. Have you ever seen an episode of Cops?
Yes.
Okay, my family's in the back seat. They're not driving the car,
okay.
right? So I grew up with alcoholics, drug addicts, and abusers. Not saying that my parents were abusers or anything. I'm not saying that at all. But they were, alcoholics, and my mother went through opioid addiction because of breast cancer. She had a double mastectomy, and then the doctor had her on morphine, and then that became an addiction as well. So I kind of grew up with that, and then also we just didn't do well financially. So I grew up around really bad nutrition, and it's just because they didn't know any better.
Right.
They didn't know what they were doing when it came to that, and they didn't understand the long-term effects of that. My father had diabetes, and he was a stubborn man. He was just stuck in his ways. But watching that growing up, naturally I started adopting those habits as I got older.
So looking back, what type of toll did that take on you as a kid, like growing up in that type of environment?
Honestly, I think the biggest toll it took on me was the psychological one.
Okay.
Because when I went to school, I was the kid. Now this is going to sound really sad, but I was the kid that smelled like smoke. I was in hand-me-down clothes. I remember at one point I was being made fun of because I was wearing pants that I thought were pants, but were actually capris.
Oh, okay.
So I was just like, man, I was ahead of my time.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
I see
Sending those trends.
Yeah. But yeah, no, it took a heavy psychological toll. What's funny is like people see me nowadays and they're just like, oh man, you're so confident, you're so happy, you're so enthusiastic. I'm like, that's not me as a kid. Me as a kid, I was super shy. I didn't want to talk to people. I didn't want to be around people. I would watch people. I was very much a people observer, and which kind of, I don't know, I think it shaped me in a good way.
Okay.
Because I started to kind of see a lot of things that people were doing, and I was able to avoid a lot of things. The choices my brother and my sister were making with their lives. My sister, when she was 16, got involved with meth, and and she went through meth addiction. My brother, he moved out when he was like 16, 17, and then he went through a cocaine addiction. So I was able to kind of see what they did. So I was really shy, really reserved, but because I was that way and I was watching people, I feel like it really helped me out on not making some mistakes that I saw my brothers and my sisters making, my parents making.
Yeah. So you were the youngest of your siblings?
Yes. Yeah, I'm the baby.
The baby. So okay, at 19, right before you have this motorcycle accident, where were you at mentally and physically at that point?
Honestly, I wasn't in a good place.
Okay.
I was hanging around. I was hanging out with some people that were well-intentioned in their heart. They loved me, but they were making bad choices. And at that time, my wife now, she was my girlfriend at the time. She actually broke up with me. Because she was like, the route you're going down, I can't go down this route. This isn't who you are. I know this isn't who you are, and I just can't stick around to watch you destroy yourself. And I was all bitter about it and everything. But looking back on it now, I was like, it was honestly the most gracious thing she could have done for me. Because what it did was it allowed me to work on myself. No one was trying to fix me. She, she didn't try to she wasn't hanging out a trailer screaming, I can change him, she was allowing me to have the room to change myself.
Yeah.
So my life was pretty much funny enough, a wreck. I mean, not to be punny, Dustin's really punny, but it was pretty much a wreck. I just wasn't in a place mentally, physically, emotionally that I wanted to be in, or that I knew that was possible for me. Because even with all that going on, I still believed deep down at the core of me that I was meant to be something more, that I could have something more. I just didn't know how to do it.
Okay. So you're going through this recovery. You gained 80 pounds from, I'm assuming, being bedridden the whole time, right?
Well, pretty much. I'm a fighter.
Okay.
Because of the wreck, I experienced things like I didn't even know what a hematoma was.
Do you know what that? I have no idea what
basically,
that is.
a hematoma is when basically liquid forms like a pocket underneath of your skin. So I had this big blood hematoma on my back, and like because I was just laying on my back for, I was pretty much laying down for 4 months.
Okay.
So I experienced a lot of things. The doctors kind of told me that I was never going to be able to run or jump again without pain. Pretty much proved them wrong, but where everything started shifting for me was when I started to kind of think about the future that I wanted to have. I started thinking about, first of all, my girlfriend who just broke up with me, who I totally believed was going to be the one, right? And how I lost that. And honestly, a lot of people, they get so caught up with like, well, things aren't going my way. Things aren't going my way, everything's like falling apart around me. It was honestly the best thing that ever happened to me because of that, I was able to make some different choices. And the different choices I started making, well, one of the first choices I started making is who do I want to be around? That was the number one thing. Who do I want to be around? And I started realizing, well, during that whole 4-month period where I couldn't go anywhere and I was just laying down, I understood who were my true friends because they were the ones showing up. My buddy, I'll give him a shout out, Derek. I'm sure he's going to watch this. He'll probably comment on it. But he was there pretty much almost every day. And he was just kind of showing me that we were more than friends. He was my brother. And he did things for me like, this isn't graphic at all, but like I couldn't even wash my own back.
Okay.
Like I would stand in the shower and I'd just be in pain. And he came in there and he actually washed me. Like he just showed me what a true friend is, what a true brother is. And it's funny how like all the people I was hanging around and said, "Oh, Rob, you're the best guy," and everything like that. They were nowhere to be seen. They didn't show up. They didn't come around. I mean, even my wife, even though she broke up with me, she was still visiting me.
Oh, that's nice.
So it just proved to me these are the people that truly, truly care about me and that want me around. So when I understood like I don't have 15 friends, I actually just have 2 right now, or I have 3 right now because my buddy, I still had a couple other friends that were really, really good friends at the time. So I understood my friends, my inner circle is actually much smaller, but that's okay. To me, it was a blessing because now like I had these quality friends and the other people, I wasn't totally cutting them out of my life, but what I did was I started reducing my time with them so I can start to make better choices for myself.
Got it. Now, learning that and going through that and experience that with your true friends, how does that play into your serving mindset that you have towards coaching today?
Well, to be a coach or to be a leader, in my mind, you have to be a servant. And when I started kind of seeing how people would go out of their way, because I've always had this complex since I was younger that I'm not good enough, I'm not worth it, everything like that, right? And I can go down that road very easily in my mind. But when you have people that just like, if you take a step back and you see those people just love you, and there's no other reason why, except they just love you, period. You start to understand, I can be that for other people as well. So not only did it become my mission to love those people back that love me, but to be more unconditional with my love. So just being nicer to people. During my time in the hospital, I had some nurses. Some nurses were very much passionate and very much dedicated to being nurses. And then there was other nurses that you could tell they were there for a paycheck.
Yeah.
They didn't want to talk to you. They were sour the entire time. If you asked them for anything, it was like you were pulling their teeth. And to me, I wanted to start to find something that was going to allow me to serve people in the best possible way while I was loving them, while I was positive, while I was enthusiastic. It took me a while to find it. It took me a long road to find it. But now today, if I cut to today as a coach, I get to give back in a way that most people never find in their life because they're too concerned with the things that are seemingly the end of the world. Like, I got to pay bills, I got to do this, I got to do that, you know. And that was one perspective that completely switched in me. That nothing's truly the end of the world, you know. When the end of the world hits, I'm not going to know because I'll be dead.
Right, exactly.
Right? So until then, nothing's the end. And every day I can choose to live it to the fullest, serve to the fullest, love to the fullest. And I get to do that as a coach, which is so rewarding.
Yeah, life is so much bigger than, you know, like you've mentioned, paying bills, just going to work, you're pushing paper, things like that.
Yeah.
So do you meet a lot of clients that struggle, you know, feeling loved or loving themselves?
I would say 90% of the people that come through the gym have a bad self-image. And the reason they do is because they've been conditioned to have it. See, I think that us as people, we're destined for success, but we're conditioned for failure. You know, we allow other people to tell us our value. We allow other people to tell us whether we look good or not. We allow other people, and because of that, because we're adopting other people's beliefs along the way, because the natural thing is we want to fit in, you know? So like, if you say something, and regardless if I disagree with you or not, but I want to fit in with you, I'm going to have to agree with you. And so a lot of people that come in, they have that bad self-image because they've agreed with too many people that have a negative image of them, right? So regardless if it was their parents or their spouse or whatever, someone said something along the line and they agreed with it within themselves. I agree that I'm not enough. I agree that I don't look the way I should look. I agree that I'm not as pretty as I should be, so on and so forth. I mean, that's one of the biggest issues that we have with like the whole like media industry, right? Is these impossible standards that, but you know, like the number one thing I tell people, by the way, is unfollow all the Instagram models.
They're all Photoshopped. They're all Photoshopped.
Yeah, so unfollow all of those people because your body won't look like that. You can get abs. You can get abs. You can see veins. You can do all that, right? But your body's going to look like your body. It's not going to look like their body.
Right.
Right? So a lot of people do come in and they have the bad self-image. And what I find is just the fact that they're coming in and they have a coach that cares and that's proud of them for taking action, it automatically sparks this little seed of confidence. Because one of the coolest things to see clients go through is not just their scale journey, but to see that confidence journey, right?
Yeah, I mean, that changes their whole life. Like the scale, it changes the number, but at the end of the day, changing your confidence and everything within, that literally changes every aspect of your life. So how, other than unfollowing all the Instagram models, what is some advice that you have to someone that may be struggling with living up to others' expectations?
I would say don't live up to others' expectations because then you're allowing other people to control the way you feel. I think if you really want to live the life that you truly desire, you have to set standards for yourself. It's very useful for us to use role models. Like, I use role models all the time. I mean, like, I look at guys like, you know, Bedros or Tony Robbins or, you know, Craig Ballantyne. Like, I look at those guys and I go, man, they have something that I want, but I'm not going to gauge whether I'm successful by what they have or what I have a lack of, right? I'm going to kind of like model some things after them, but then I'm also going to set standards for myself. The fact is that every single person you should do this exercise right away. Take out a piece of paper and write down 5 to 10 things that are very, very important to you. What are the things that you would stand for? What are the things that you would die for? What are the things that you want to live for, right? And start making choices based off of that list. One of my core values is integrity. And what's integrity to me? It's doing the right thing at the right time, regardless if it's uncomfortable, regardless if it causes me pain, right? I have to be honest, I have to be integral, I have to be that stuff. And I've found that my level of personal happiness has only ever increased after making those hard choices, right? Because everything we want is on the other side of a hard choice.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So Speaking of integrity being your core, one of your highest core values, how do you apply that to your coaching, and what are the effects that you've seen when applying it to your coaching?
Yeah. So applying integrity to my coaching, the number one thing I refuse to do is follow a trend and give somebody a trendy fad, a trendy diet, a trendy anything, right? We don't do burpees, right, at our facility. And burpees are fine. I mean, they're great. They're cardiovascular and everything. But what I find is 80 to 90% of people do them incorrectly. They slam their hands into the ground. They bend their lower back in weird ways. They contort it, right? So what I find is what just keeps everyone safe is just not having burpees. We can split up that motion. We can do a squat and then we can do a push-up. We don't really need to do those together in order to get the same result, right? And we apply that consistently throughout our program, right? But when I'm coaching somebody, I'm refusing to give them the short-term fix, right? Obviously, you can go on Google, you can go on YouTube, you can find all those short-term fixes, right? But if you want long-term success, that's where I keep my integrity. I always tell people, if you want long-term success, it has to be a lifestyle, it can't be a diet. It has to be a lifestyle, it can't be just a workout. It has to be a non-negotiable part of your day. And when it becomes that, then you'll get long-term success because you'll remain consistent and persistent.
Yeah, it's all about the sustainability.
Yeah.
So speaking of that, when you were 80 pounds overweight, when you were recovering from your accident, how did you go about losing that weight and keeping it off?
So I yo-yoed, actually. Okay, so I yo-yoed. I lost the weight, I gained the weight, I lost the weight, I gained the weight. And where I had the shift of losing the weight and keeping it off is when I literally shifted into, I'm not doing this for a short-term goal. I got to do this for the rest of my life.
How did you realize that?
I realized that because at the time, I was actually a personal trainer, right? So this was, in all honesty, this was only, 4 years ago that I made this shift in my life. And the way I made that shift is I understood that regardless of what I believed about myself, people looked up to me. And if people looked up to me, it was my responsibility to be a role model. And the only way I could truly be a role model is by doing what I'm saying, right? Because a lot of people, they'll say a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, totally.
I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to lose weight, right? But not a lot of people actually follow up and do it, right? And I found that if I wanted to positively influence people towards a healthier life, I first had to build that myself. So the first shift I made was, I'm a role model. People look up to me. People ask for my advice. People want to know that what I'm saying is what I'm doing.
You said yo-yo dieting was some of the things that you did. What type of exercises did you incorporate at that time?
So what's funny is with yo-yo dieting, I did like yo-yo exercise. Right? So I would do cardio and lifts and hit, and then I'd go hit weights and everything. And what I found is that it's cool to do a lot of things, but if you know what your long-term goal is for yourself, then you got to build a strategy that is actually going to get you there and something that you can remain consistent in. One thing that always breaks my heart is when someone comes to our facility and they come to it for a short period of time. They go, oh, I'm just going to go try this other thing, right? And then they go try this other thing. 9 times out of 10, I'd say 99 times out of 100, people always circle around back and they've gained more weight. So the thing is I did everything and I got nowhere. So when I started dedicating myself into, look, HIIT training works. What we do at FitBody, it just works, period. There's science behind it. There's resistance, there's cardio. You're getting the most bang for your buck in 30 minutes you possibly can, right? So when I started staying consistent in that, and then I realized, okay, part of my goals is to get really, really strong as well. So I started adding a little bit of weightlifting to it. Then I started seeing the results, and then all of a sudden, I started keeping the results, and that was the biggest thing for me.
I love that.
Yeah.
Now, when you have your clients in your location, what is some of the biggest things that you see they struggle with when trying to stay on track with their fitness journeys?
The biggest thing, I think the biggest obstacle everyone struggles with is themselves. It's we convince ourselves that what we're doing is selfish. Like, oh, I'm gonna go to the gym, that's 30 minutes, but that's 30 minutes not with my kids. That's 30 minutes not with my husband or my wife, right? We convince ourselves that it's selfish. But I always tell people, taking care of yourself is the most selfless thing you can do, right?
That's so true.
Yeah, because if you think about it this way, okay, you know, I'm a dad, right? If I don't take care of myself, what happens to my body? I get sick, I get a disease, something happens, right? How does that affect my kids? How does that affect my wife? It affects them massively in a negative way, right? But if I take care of myself, then I can consistently be healthy and I can consistently take care of them. See, when you take care of yourself, you just have more of yourself to give to everybody else.
That's so true. And like you said, you being healthy, being able to be there for your wife and your kids, it also instills like for your kids to live a healthy lifestyle just like you, because at the end of the day, kids always copy what their parents do.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. They never do what you say, they do what you do.
Exactly.
It's
so
hands down. And I had this proud dad moment where we were at a kid's birthday party. It was actually my nephew's birthday party. And my daughter, you know, it's time for cake, everyone's playing, and then it's time for cake, yeah, it's cake, and they all run over, right? And my daughter takes one bite of cake. And then she's kind of sitting there staring at it. And I go, what's going on, honey? And she goes, can I have an apple? I was just like,
yes.
Oh, yes,
Win.
yes, right? And when I tell that story, people go, how did you do that? I'm like, it's not really what I told her. It's just she saw me sitting there with an apple.
Yeah.
She saw me not eating the cake. And that's what shifted her. That's what made her think, man, I really don't want this. I want to be like dad. Because my daughter she's a daddy's girl.
How old is she?
She's 7, she's gonna turn 8 soon. And she's a daddy's girl. She looks up to me, she wants to emulate me. She has this big personality, right? Like I as much as I try to contain myself, I just can't. I just can't. And she has this big personality, but more than anything else, she just wants to make me proud, right? And I can go on and on and on and talk about her. But she just wants to make me proud. And one of the things I've always consistently done is when she makes good choices, I reward her disproportionately. Like she can, you know, take the trash out and I'll just be like, oh my God, you're amazing. You know, and it's not a patronizing way or a demeaning way.
Yeah.
It's just, I want to enforce in her, like, hey, this is what it's about. You take care of yourself, but you also take care of other people. You know?
I love that. I absolutely love that. So what does living beyond the scale mean to you?
Living beyond the scale, what does that mean to me? It means that we can always try to measure ourselves in one way. If you're only trying to measure yourself in one way, like weighing yourself on a scale or how much money you make and everything like that, you're never going to get completely happy in one area, right? Life is so diverse and there's so much going on in life that there's going to be multiple areas that you're going to have to work on. But when people understand, when people truly, truly understand, it's not about what happens to you, and it's not about what other people do, and it's not about what other people have, but it's about the decisions that you make on a consistent basis that truly shape your future. I truly believe that every decision I make today, I will have the consequences of that tomorrow or next week or next year, right? So if you understand that the decisions you're making right now in this moment, what you decide to believe, what you decide to do, what you decide to say, will ultimately shape the future that you have, I think that's where people get completely empowered. And I think living beyond the scale is about taking control one decision at a time.
I love that. So it's definitely not about any numbers in life. It's all about how you feel on the inside and the decisions that you choose to make.
Absolutely.
Well, I want to thank you so much for being on. And
no, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. If anyone at home wants to visit you at your location, where can they go?
Oh, you can stalk me at Ontario Fit Body Boot Camp. We're right off the 60 freeway in Vineyard in Southern California.
And if you're not in the Ontario area, make sure you check out fitbodybootcamp.com to find a location near you and claim your 3 free workouts. Until next time. Did you know that you could have done a full workout in the amount of time it took you to listen to this podcast? Go to fitbodybootcamp.com to claim your 3 free sessions now. And remember to join me next Tuesday so you can see who our special guest is. Until then, remember to live a fit body, fit mind forever.